hovers right in front of me, looks into my eyes, looks into my soul, as if to say, thank you for saving me. And it stays there for a moment, and then it disappears like a moonbeam. Within 5 minutes, I had these two incredible events happen to me. And what I learned is if you've ever doubted there's a God, there's a source, there's an energy, when you have something like that happen to you, and it happens to you twice in the course of 5 minutes, you can never doubt. And I think the other thing I learned, and I didn't learn these right then, just so you know. I mean, this is something I had to think about, or it came to me. I just learned, you got to pay attention to the little things. God could be a hummingbird in your garage. Really. So, that's one little story. So then I want to tell you another one. So shortly after I met Susan McMaster, who is, by the way, sitting here in the front row, I asked her to come to church early just so she could hear us sing and cry in the first row, but she missed it. Anyway, shortly after I met her, I decided I wanted to hike the Appalachian Trail. Or not the whole trail, just a little bit of it. But I wanted it to be a real hike, like for a week or so, because at that point, I think the furthest I could hike is like around the corner of the Pizza Hut, So I called Susan. She said yes. That's what I love about Susan. She is a yes gal. And so we started doing all our research about what we were going to need, trying to figure out what we were going to need on the Appalachian Trail and out in the wilderness. And so over a few weeks, we started accumulating all this stuff that we needed. Before we knew it, we had picked up backpacks, new hiking poles, new hats, new hiking boots, new tarps, new sleeping bags, new thermal rest cushions, new Smartwell socks, new jackknives, new carabiners, new flashlights. Well, the truth is, I'm the only one who picked up new stuff. She actually went to garage sales and picked up everything. But so the time came to leave. I put all the stuff in my bag. These were all the things that the experts, the online experts and the hiking experts told us we needed these things. I put them all in my new pack. Tried to pick it up, couldn't even pick it up. And I'm thinking, how am I going to carry this for 7, 8, 9 days on the trail? I can't even pick this thing up. But you know what? Susan's bag was worse. Because she is a foodie. She's a born-again foodie. And she was in charge of food. So Susan's pack, she put soy milk, and I don't mean the powdered kind. I mean the kind in the cardboard boxes. Soy milk, broccoli, vegetables, apples, sugar, popcorn, oil, butter, heavy stuff. None of this dehydrated stuff, the real food. And if my pack weighed 45 pounds, which it did, hers weighed 60. And so it was at that time we decided, actually Susan decided, we better have my son go with us. So she invited Josh to be our own personal Sherpa. And Josh invited his best friend, Becky, who had literally, been studying outdoor recreation since birth. So just in case we needed somebody to protect us in the wild, we had Becky, and those two, they had all the latest and greatest equipment and gadgets and everything. So we threw everything in the back of Susan's convertible. And we drove all the way to Virginia. And most of the time we had the pack sitting on our laps because that was the only place it would fit. And the weather report for the week was torrential rain and flooding. But if you know the McNasters and me, we just said, we're going. We don't care. We're going. So it rained pretty much the entire trip to Virginia. Then we ended up in a motel for 2 days while it rained for 2 more days. And then all of a sudden we woke up the next morning and the sun came out. So we threw everything in the back of the convertible and went to the trailhead. And we're putting our stuff on, and the sun is kind of going down behind that rain cloud. And we decide it starts sprinkling, so we put our ponchos on over our packs immediately. And we're just about to head off in the trail, and this station wagon pulls up. This old beat-up station wagon with this old hippie guy in it. And he says to us, hey, are you going hiking? And Josh, yeah, this is our first, we're just going right now. It's the first day. He goes, well, do you want me to take your packs? Because I have a hostel just down, it's a day's hike, and I could take your packs for you, and then you can show up at the hostel, and Josh and Sue and Becky go, no, we're fine, we'll take our packs. I looked at the guy and went, here's mine. You can take my pack, threw it into the back of his car. And the skies opened up. We were 3 minutes on the trail, and it rained the entire day. We were wet. Our Smart Wool socks were soaked. Our new everything was soaking wet. And it didn't bother me so much because I didn't have 60 pounds of weight on my back. So I was kind of tripping lightly along, and I'd every once in a while notice Susan collapsing under the weight of the group's soy milk. And it was starting to get dusk. And we were hoping to come across this shelter. There was one cabin that was supposed to be coming up, and so we were getting a little nervous about that. And finally, we saw it off in the distance, and we got up to it, and of course it was filled with campers, hikers, that had gotten there before us, and there was literally no room at the inn. Now I know how Mary and Joseph felt. And we said, okay, and now it's getting dark, and our next challenge is we come across this mountain that I'm sure under normal circumstances, it was a nice place to hike over the rocks and the boulders. But because it had rained for a week, it was a river coming down a hill. At this point, Susan gives Josh her pack, and he's got his pack on the back and her pack on the front, and then he is shoving Susan up the mountain, and I'm in front of her pulling Susan up the mountain. And we make it up over the mountain, make it down the other side, and now it's pitch black out. And I'm thinking, are we going to even make it through our first day on the Appalachian Trail? Are we going to make it here? And the thought occurred to me at some point, I gave my bag away to a perfect stranger that had all of my new fandangled hiking equipment in it. What if I never see this guy again? I'm on the trail for 8 days with nothing. But we were just probably at our lowest point. And I see these 2 guys coming down the trail. And they're in kilts. And dreadlocks. And one of them's yelling my name. He's going, Amy! Amy, is that you? And I'm thinking, wow! I have never been so happy to see perfect strangers in my life, And they come up to us, and they go, hey, the dude back at the hostel told us to come and get you because he thought you might be lost. I'm like, oh, thank you. Anyway, this guy's nickname was Kilt. And we spoke with Kilt, talked to him the whole way back, and fascinating guy. And we got back to the hostel, and oh my gosh, we stayed up talking with these guys all night because they were through hikers. They had started at the end of March in Atlanta, or in Georgia, and they were hiking all the way to Maine. And told us a million stories that night. And we had, great food and warm bed, and they had a dryer, so we got to dry all of our equipment, and life was good. And the next morning I got up, and I asked Kilt if he would help me repack my bag. And really just be truthful with me. Just, take out anything you don't think I'm going to need, and just leave what you think I'm going to need on the hike. And he said, sure. So he took I brought him my bag, and he opened it up and started going through it, and he go, don't need it, don't need it, don't need it, don't need it, don't need it. I'm thinking, am I going to have anything left? Don't need it, don't need it, don't need it, don't need it, don't need it. I am not kidding you. He took 3/4 of my bag out. And I thought, what am I going to do? And then I thought, I'm just going to believe this guy, because he's been doing it. I'm just going to let it go. And then he did the same thing with Susan's bag. Don't need it, don't need it, don't need it, don't need it. The whole thing. And we just let it go, put it in a box in the front entrance of the hostel so that other hikers could take it if they needed it. And that's when our real hike started, in that moment. Because what I learned, and again, I didn't learn it then, I thought about it later, but I learned that we really don't need much in life to be happy. Really, not much at all. To live lightly and fully and freely. Kilt was amazing. Here he was hiking, 15 to 20 miles every day for 6 months. And he was so darn happy and so darn full of life and energy, and not burdened by the load he carried on his back.